Oh man. Okay. I know I was MIA for the new moon, and I apologize for that, but you know what? That was a doozy of a new moon. Time period. Retrograde period. We all were given quite a few curveballs, and had to take some time to find the reality. But you know what? Party on. We fall back only to become stronger, and life moves on. And how appropriate, like, I don't know, the last moon was in Libra, and my Vedic sun sign is Libra. I also resonate a lot with that, so I feel like it was a very covertly intense time. For myself, but not so much maybe for other people. This full moon, supermoon, also there was just a meteor shower. I forget the name of it, but you know, the sky is just as bubbling as we are inside. This full moon will be in Aries. I do feel like this is, like very like almost last episode kind of energy, like almost like end of the chapter kind of energy. And Aries very much has that vibe, you know, blah blah blah, astrological New Year. But upon looking at these things, I think that the sun is trine with Saturn or something like that. But I think that Venus, Mars, and Saturn are very much sort of organizing within their own trine. However, it is not a traditional trine, because I also see that what aligns in between that is sort of like a monkey wrench in it and sort of like a dissection of the vivisection. Why is this not focusing? I don't know, man. It's because maybe I'm not... There we go. I don't know. We're trying. But so Ceres is like a comet or an asteroid, but Mercury is on one side of Earth, Jupiter's on another side of Earth, and Neptune are all kind of like in this very organized tether and pull or sort of dissection of this organizing trine, or a traditional, a dissection of. I think that's also kind of why there have been so many themes of clarity and themes of, things of letting go and things of new and things of trying and difficult moments of that. I think it's a very different perspective of all of the squares that we focus on. Because this, and it's fair that we focus on those because the squaring that is happening is sort of in the steady in their shit kind of planets. Uranus and Taurus have been doing their fucking thing for a hot fucking minute, and people are wild. And those squares are very much an important part of it too, but I'm focusing on kind of right now, so bear with me. It will be an Aries full moon, and Chiron and Jupiter will also be in company with it, which is a lot. Jupiter is a very intense energy. It's also in retrograde, and Chiron is sometimes the only thing you need to pull on the wrong thread. But it's growing pains, really. I think the Moon, Chiron, and Jupiter are in opposition with the Sun and Venus, and a little Mercury is like all up in there, and it's not necessarily within certain boundaries, but it is sort of directing that way now that it's out of retrograde, which is really just moving back to where it started in retrograde anyway, which is really just like a hiccup, it's like a glitch, like a try again kind of moment. I think that placement is also very particularly lending the last of itself to Virgo and Mercury's energy. Like Virgo's essentially, that placement of Virgo is essentially lending the last of its clarity and clarifying and definitive to it, which is, you know, probably the deep intensity of this dissective kind of nature. You know, we have to get in and kind of dirty and kind of deeper in it, and that's not painful. We can meditate through that pain, but it is uncomfortable. It is disruptive. I don't necessarily want to say aggressive, but defensive. Which defensive can kind of have a posturing to it, but can it really be defined as aggression? I don't know. Because would not that be the opposite? I don't know, or maybe it's not mutually exclusive, but explore that concept for yourself, I suppose. But I guess, yeah, essentially with clarity comes growing pains, and I think the deeper introspection or interoception that we do is also very empowered by Mars's placement in Gemini and Black Moon Lilith's placement in Pisces, because that is its own monkey wrench on the monkey wrench, or like, you know, finer dissection, finer cut to the cord. And I think all of this essentially will set a very grand stage for what Pluto in Capricorn is doing and planning to do and building to do. Especially maybe once all of these planets decide to come out of retrograde. But with that all being said, I feel like it'd be a good idea to pull some cards. I feel like it's always a pretty good idea to pull some cards. Maybe not always, but, you know, to each their own. I think that's also maybe why I didn't pull cards last new moon, was because it just was so intense that I wanted to protect myself, I suppose. I wanted to analyze that energy in a different way. I wanted to use that energy in a different way. And sometimes that means not in the ways that I normally do. Sometimes the best way to use energy is to use it for momentum to explore a new direction, which has nothing to do with it. Because there is no right and wrong. That's so funny that that happened. Okay. Alrighty, my friends. Let's take 3 deep breaths together and see what it is that this moon descending upon us has to say. Sorry. Take 3 deep breaths with me, and imagine with your hands exposed that there is a deck of cards underneath them and a shadow card rising into your hands. And 1 more time. 3 more times. Take a deep breath in. And exhale, shadow card. Take a deep breath in. And exhale, shadow card. One more deep breath in. And exhale, shadow card. Interesting. I don't know. Anticipatory. Sort of elevating. Ooh, okay. Okay. Ooh, okay. I like this. I will say, amidst the intensity and like even what I read for myself about this moon, this is dope. And very exciting. That was interesting in that I felt this sort of pulling away from like my lower body to my upper body, but also when I accepted that, it almost collapsed together in a very pleasing way. And that's maybe, you know, going into the dissecting of ourselves, the breaking of ourselves, the breaking of things we didn't perhaps see the boundaries of before, or the binding of before. And when we accept that, the pleasure that can come with that. Death card is the first thing that popped up, which is one of my favorite cards. As ominous as the cloak and the scythe may be, it's a beautiful new dawn of something. With death comes capacity for great creation. Comes wholeness, comes reuniting, comes all of these really wild and wonderful concepts. And sometimes we have to kill things like fear to experience those wild and wonderful things. Sometimes we have to kill I don't want to say ego. I've changed my mind on that. But we acknowledge these things, and you know what? Exactly, maybe kill's the wrong way to say it, because we're not actively murdering these things. We don't express pain to ourselves we do not express pain to ourselves for sake of that. But there's a peacefulness with accepting accepting the passing, and what an incredible allowance, you know, to be able to let things move freely beyond boundaries from this world to the next. Maybe that's also accepting some intensity in the thinning veil of Halloween. Not even just Halloween, just the times as they've been. Thinner and thinner every day. Not actively hurting, but facing. Not actively murdering or killing, but facing. You face death. You greet it. You don't attack it. You don't fight it. You don't. And I have a theory that perhaps that's the actual ultimate purpose to life, isn't to live for extreme pleasures and live for some untouchable glory or infatuation. Those are all fleeting. But I do think that that the purpose of life is to die with ease and to die with peace. To be at ease and with peace when you pass. To be able to accept that and understand the many pleasures that can exist outside of that. Which is a hard thing to say, you know, like, there was a time where I was young and I was angry and I was in pain and I was not afraid of death. And then there was a time where I was healing and I was afraid of death, and I remember how binding that felt. And granted, no, like I didn't want to die or whatever. It was just, I don't want to die anymore. But it was a very overwhelming fear that I think I had to sit with and recognize that that has more to do with the way that I think that I'm living now than it does with the fear of death. And so, again, brings it back to presence. And if I can live in a way that's authentic in every moment, then when death comes, party on. It sounds dark and it sounds morbid, but I don't know, it works for me. And death is a very metaphorical concept in many realms, once you really think about it. So, if that makes you uncomfortable, substitute it with change. Substitute it with transformation. And just play it back in your head. Moving on, the fear, the Fool. Ooh, 13. Interesting. That relates to 4, which connects to home, which there is never fear in facing the Fool, because you're always at home, because you're always at ease, because you're always at peace. Again, isn't that what I just said? Just maybe not disgraceful. I imagine it feels like being stuck in the 0. Ironically, what is meant to feel, or what was covertly meant to be wholeness, can also feel like a small room with not much to breathe. Or like, overwhelming options, or feeling completely lost with seeming options or none. Imagine being inside of the 0. Do you see walls? Do you see yourself enclosed, encased? Or do you see freedom? Or do you see infinity? Or do you see endlessness? And the Fool is what makes that or breaks that. And that is present placement. There is still acknowledging to the sun, and there is an abyss in the night. I think the night is mysterious, but the sun is something that we can also root in or reach for. Why do I feel like he's chasing? Rooting or reaching for, touching the flame. That goes against fear too. And the Queen of Wands is next, which is fire element, which is a ruler of fire element, which is also someone who is well aware of how to rule that fire and movement. And what this Fool is giving me is like reaching for the flame, like reaching for the sun, like too close to the sun. And while that could be what alludes to this in some sort of lesson to be learned, I think it's a place that can find grounding too, and be able to transpire post-transformation, which would also acknowledge death in that equation, the usefulness of it. All of these are really strong and very positive cards. The irony of it is that the bottom of the deck is the 8 of Swords, which is a little bit less of all of this excitement. And I don't think it's less or not, actually. I think it's the stress that excitement can be too. It's like people say planning parties and planning like weddings or whatever, or people who throw nights are like, that was stressful. But it was full of excitement, and it was full of pleasure, and it was full of joy, and full of growth, and full of prosperity, and love, and whatever the occasion may be. But the details that go into it can be very overwhelming. And so perhaps this is a time where exactly being in the middle of that 0 feels like we're on a road to nowhere. And in actuality, that is precisely the road that you need to be on, because it is never nowhere. And as long as you are grounded and inspired, then the road will pull you to your heart, and that's the only thing that matters. Damn, that's awesome. Because the Eight of Swords is really only about holding yourself back and missing that. And that's because we're looking for something rather than feeling something. And that's, again, what happens in so much excitement. With so much excitement and with so much going on. So, yeah, that's wild. That's fucking wild. Okay, what time is it? I got a little bit of time. I'm going to pull just a few. Just a few. Because time and space. I think these figures are also very archetypal figures, minus the present and the like zeitgeist card, which is very human to me. It feels very human to me, like what you see is fallibility and what I see is human, and then what you see is godly and I see the archetype. But they both are expressions of you and of what this momentum is capable of. So in moments of fearing just how powerful we are, understand that the archetype was also such because it expressed humanity, and that humanity is capable of expressing some pretty miraculous things. Okay, time and space. What's up, full moon? Take a deep breath in and exhale. Take a deep breath in and exhale. Take a deep breath in and exhale. Oh, ouch. Okay. Very dry throat. I'm actually a little dizzy, and something hurt here, which is maybe the pressure that we put on ourselves to, like, it's the shooting finger is what I'm feeling, like what's supposed to be so like receptive and interoceptive is like overrun by pressure and you should and you could have, and judgment, like self-judgment, but also where we recognize it in the outside world, because that shows you a lot about where you ultimately unsubconsciously judge yourself, which is interesting because all of these numbers are sort of dual and even numbers, which means that it's a reflection or has sort of like a counterpart to it, be that in thought or process or whatever. It doesn't necessarily have to manifest with people or be physical people. However, again, judgment in yourself shows in other people. Four of Hearts, Four of Diamonds, Eight of Diamonds. Yeah, that's literally what I just said. Emotional energy turning solid and the abstract turning concrete. The inner monologue turning into dialogue. The inner reality turning into reality. And then the King of Diamonds, that's the ruler. Again, what did I say about this setting the stage for Pluto and Capricorn? Embrace that and understand that, because the outside world's got its own fucking plans, and you need to have your own fucking plans too. Damn. There's a communication with that and how it transpires. And this playfulness with these two characters that can be other people, but that can also be, like I said, the playfulness of being able to dissect yourself. Granted, that sounds grotesque, but it is just look at it as a curiosity, a spelunking, like you're digging for fucking worms in your own soil. It doesn't have to be a dissection. That's just how I would see and think, apparently. And communication. Communication always helps bring clarity. And you know what? Sometimes those conversations are, again, uncomfortable or may feel aggressive when in actuality they are defensive. But when we investigate those things and through those growing pains, we are gifted clarity in those moments. Man, I hope that helps. That is a lot. My heart is racing. Because I do see that and acknowledge that in the world. And also the sun is down, so like I'm really close to this right now. So I'm gonna sever that and digest. So I'm not off my rocker later. But yeah. I feel like I've repeated myself like 3 different times. So if that still doesn't make sense to you, watch it again. If it still doesn't make sense to you, ask me a question. And we can talk more specifically about your deal. But yeah, party on. Thanks for being curious with me. And I hope you find compassion in your clarity as well. Party on. I'll see you later.